is Trace and welcome back to my channel. In today's video, if you guys could not tell by the title, I will be reviewing my spoiler-free, let's see if I can do the spoiler-free, thoughts on Chain of Thorns by Cassandra Clare. If you guys are looking for something more spoiler-filled, where maybe like I'm crying with y'all, sobbing with y'all, I'm angry with all of y'all, I'm hesitant with y'all, I do have, like if you read the book and you're like there, I have a full spoiler-filled vlog that you guys can watch. It's about an hour long. I'm so sorry, I should just make it shorter. Did not work out in my favor. Of the book has all of my thoughts in it, all of my hesitations, all of my concerns moving forward with the wicked powers, all the things that I felt, all the sobbing. But if you're like maybe like haven't picked up the book yet and want to see like spoiler free thoughts on the book, as someone who has finished it, as someone who can like maybe give more of like a cohesive thought to it, this is the video for you. So let's just kind of get into it because I do have quite a lot of things to say. But if you guys don't know what Chain of Thorns is, this is the final book in the Last Hours trilogy. This is the third and final one. But this follows Cordelia Carstairs as she and her family kind of leave France after a scandal that her father's brought upon the family, and they move to London, where she reunites with James and the Merry Thieves, and best of all, her best friend Lucy Herondale. During this time together, they are thrown into terrible things, terrible things, and have to kind of figure out very adult decisions in their not very adult minds quite yet. This is, like I said, the final book in that, so we get to see everything kind of wrap up, and as well as the potential hints and suggestions as to what might be coming for our friends in the Wicked Powers several, like, what, 100 or 2 years later? I can't math. Before I get into the actual nitty-gritty of like my thoughts in the review, I want to throw out some trigger warnings here. There is violence, there is death, there is murder, there is, I think, gun use. Yes. And then there is also alcoholism and recovery, and sexual acts. There's some sex things going on here. So that's not something that you're quite interested in, and something that maybe that you might not be intrigued in reading if you're not prepared to go into this book quite yet. That would be something to consider. I think for the most part, anyone who's read a Shadowhunter book understands that there is going to be some violence, some gore, some unsavory things. So just a heads up for anyone who maybe is not yet aware of the trigger warnings or the things that are maybe have forgotten the content of what's going to be in this book. I'm going to just put the book down because my arm's getting tired. So one of the things I wanted to touch on, typically in my reviews I talk about like my first thoughts. So since this is the final book in the trilogy, I don't really have first thoughts. I don't really have like thoughts like excitement or whatever. I just like almost want to get it over with. But I did have a couple concerns. One of them was mainly that since this is a Cassie Clare book, the final in the trilogy, we have seen some pretty like remarkable endings, mainly Clockwork Princess, City of Glass, City of Heavenly Fire are kind of my favorite endings. And I know a lot of like people had issues with the ending of Queen of Air and Darkness, myself included. My concern mainly is that it was going to be like the Queen of Air and Darkness trilogy ending, where we do get to see things wrap up, things are finalized and like put to the ground, so to speak. But at the same time, it's left almost unsatisfied because I did my brows really strong today, and I'm really sorry. It's starting to like, it's not bugging me, but it's distracting me for sure. My concern was that, much like Queen of Air and Darkness, it was going to be too big of a book to contain within one single book. And some aspects of the plot and of the characters, or most of the plot, because the characters are dead by the time we get to the Wicked Powers, but of the plot and like the problems within the plot are too big to contain within Chain of Thorns, and some of them would bleed into the Wicked Powers. So because of that, we'll be kind of an almost unsatisfying ending. We'll be left with things kind of left in the open and almost like not quite fully there yet. And we won't see those things finalized and realized until the end of the Wicked Powers, which who knows when we'll get it. Who knows? Like I might be married by the time the Wicked Powers comes to a conclusion, because I don't know how long Cassandra Clare's like hiatus is going to be. So we're bringing the book back. I don't know how long I'll be able to hold it up, but we're bringing the book back. For the things that I did enjoy, I did really enjoy the continuation of it all. Like I liked how expansive the Shadowhunter world is now that we're here, like how many freaking, like 20 books deep almost. We get to see like if you reread the Mortal Instruments, it's a very contained world, very simplistic, and now we've gotten a lot more complex. We're seeing a lot of differences and changes that are going on within this world, and I like that Cassie can add to it. Which was my problem in Chain of Gold, was that when Cassie was adding to things, it was one of those things where I was like, okay, well, I understand that we don't see these characters like at all in the Mortal Instruments, but my brain is like, why isn't there like at least like a hint of this? Why is this here? Da 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 da. So like again, moving on, now that this trilogies wrapped up. I do like that we are getting more expansive in terms of the lore. We're seeing more concepts of the demons, how demons and humans interact, how angels and humans interact, how angels and shadow hunters interact, etc., etc. So I do like that expansive kind of lore, and that we are getting a smidge bit more like demonic, in the sense that we are expanding upon the demon world and the demons that we're seeing. So I really did enjoy that aspect of the book. The next part that I liked was that the tea, the angst, the problems in this novel were piping hot. Like, I sat there and like I could, like, the first chunk of the book, like probably the first like quarter of the book, was very much angst and character focused, and I was sitting there like, yes, oh my, and I had issues like putting it down because it was so angsty and so drama filled, and I was just very much like, what's gonna happen next? I don't know. Oh my god, that happened. I did not see, I kind of saw it coming, but I didn't see it coming. Like, oh no, we saw it but we didn't see it. There were some rose-colored glasses going on up in here, but like, I really did enjoy that the angst kind of kept the first like quarter of the book pushing forward and chugging along, because again, it is like it's just a thick book. This is like an 800-page book. It's a heavy book, 800 pages. Like, I don't even think Queen of Air and Darkness was 800 pages. I think it was like closer to like maybe 600. No, she's a thickie. Along the same vein of the angst and the spice, or the tea, I really did enjoy the plot of the book. I liked that the plot kept us going forward. There wasn't really a time where I felt like the plot wasn't going anywhere and that it was just kind of like la-di-deeing around to find a spot to land, if that makes sense. Like, we were kind of just floating in the air until the plot like lands at the correct spot. So I did like that the plot again kept the story moving forward, kept the characters going, and we just got to see them all develop within the containment of this plot. It doesn't feel like that these characters will outgrow. Like, it felt like the ending was very much contained for the characters. So another thing that I liked was this book was definitely a lot more character driven than previous novels. We get to see a lot of jumping between characters within chapters. I feel like sometimes Cassie before only had like 2 to 3 characters contained in a chapter, sometimes even one character like leading a chapter, but now we are switching between like 3 or 4 characters, very short point of views within each chapter, and it was definitely more character driven, trying to wrap up the entirety of their stories within this 800-page novel. And I think she did a really good job balancing trying to wrap up and finish all of these point of views and storylines that she had created from the first book. And I really did enjoy that kind of aspect where we got to see characters, and it didn't feel like one character got more of a spotlight than the other, or that one character didn't get enough and that things didn't get wrapped up for a certain character. It felt like everything was pretty much like contained, and because of the jumping around, it worked out really well. Though I will say it was kind of hard to like not want to like skip through sometimes and read another character's perspective and then go back and read a different character, and like kind of like puzzle piece it that way, because the character point of views were so short, and I wanted to read more about the situation and what was going to happen, but instead we switched over to a completely different character, and I was like, this isn't fair to me. This is a form of cruelty. Instead of a book, I'll be holding up a cat. Hi, Papa. You guys remember Nico. You guys remember Nico. He has been on my channel for a hot minute. He was like so tiny when he first was introduced to this channel. And now look at him. He's so big and he's so squirmy. Okay, bye-bye. And the last thing that I really did enjoy about this book was, as per Cassie Clare, I really enjoyed the writing style. There's something about Cassie's writing style that to me it checks off every mark that I've ever wanted in a writer. I thought that she has this way of like really describing things in detail without getting too flowery or overdoing it, to the point where like almost like, you know, you draw the shape of the apple, like that meme that's going around, like you draw the shape of the apple, it's a perfect shape, you can see the shape, you can feel the shape, you can smell the apple, you can feel the texture of the apple, but then your brain will come in and fill in the rest of the gaps, like how shiny is the apple, is the apple red, green, yellow, is there leaves, how is the stem brown, is there a stem, you know, those kind of things, where like she made it so descriptive and like explain things in detail, but then left enough for you to be able to fill in other minor details with your brain, and then afterwards like put the entire picture together and then have your own idea of what it's supposed to look like, while staying true to what Cassie almost wants it to look like. And I really enjoyed that because it just again left room for the imagination. It left me being able to figure out like how I wanted so and so to look, but then she also gave us enough description to like set the building blocks of what she wanted it to look, and we just got to fill in the missing gaps with how we can interpret it, which I really enjoy in a writer. I think it's a very nice trait to do, or to have, I should say. Moving on to the bad things, I did have a few bad things to talk about. If you guys have watched my vlog, you know what they are, but if not, then here they are. And I'll keep them as spoiler free as possible. So my biggest issue, and something Lisa pointed out when she finished, was the pacing of the book. She said that the first 100 to 250 pages, and I agree with her, was very, like, the pacing was weird within that part. Because it is the third book, we did leave off on a pretty big cliffhanger at the end of the novel. So we kind of do want to see, like, what about the book is going to happen. We're expecting things to go jump right from the jump, just very quick and easy. And we get those, those calm in-between moments as the story progresses. But instead we get this huge calm in-between moment in the beginning of the book. And it was just kind of weird having to, like, go through it and figure out exactly, like, what's gonna happen. Like, while I did enjoy the angst and the tea, at some point I was sitting here like, this is too much. This is too much angst. I need to figure out what is happening with the book. I need to figure out where the plot is going. I need to know what's gonna happen to the characters. I don't need to know about the type of tea they're drinking right now. And it just felt like one of those little weird things where I was like, the pacing was very weird, and it didn't help that while it is more character driven, we did switch between so many perspectives. It was like too much ground to cover, and she did try to cover as much ground as possible, which left us very much stuck with the very, like, 250 pages of just being stuck in characters' heads without the plot moving forward and driving. It was very much just waiting for whatever it was to happen to actually happen. And because the pacing was so weird, I felt like we lost out on a lot of things, like a lot of things that characters needed to finish, or things that I wanted to see from the characters. And on top of that, I feel like we got a lot of repetitive scenes and a lot of, like, repetition of things that we didn't necessarily need to see repeated over and over again. I was very okay with certain choices happening only once and not needing the reiteration every few, like, interactions. And I felt like because we had so many repetitive scenes, we lost out on so many other scenes that I wanted to see from the book, scenes that I think would have been really important to include toward the end of the novel, or even in the middle, or like as things were progressing, some things that I feel like was just lost to us, which I was just like, why was this lost to us? We didn't need this scene of someone and so expressing their love to so-and-so for the nth time. I didn't want it. I wanted it once or twice, and then it was done, and maybe one more time at the end in case things didn't go through, but I didn't need it repeated over and over again, because we lost out on certain scenes that I really wanted to see and really wanted to just wrap up and, you know, be perfectly okay with. The next thing that I didn't like was the miscommunication. Like I've said this before, I think there is room for miscommunication in fantasy because there's so much going on. There are so many things happening, so many layers to a plot, to a character, to the events happening around them, that it makes sense that miscommunication is bound to occur. You're not going to always be able to have time to discuss things, to sit down, to figure things out, to properly convey what you're trying to say. But the miscommunication here fucking killed me. It destroyed me, and not in a great way. I was just sitting here like, you had so many damn opportunities to explain the situation, to what happened, to tell people exactly what happened. And I understand why character decided to take some time and breathe about it. But at some point, there comes a time when you're telling one thing, your actions said a different thing, and everyone's looking at you like you are now wearing a live chicken as a hat and letting its eggs and poop and pee, I'm assuming birds pee, like hit all over you, and you just sit there and go, yeah, I can't explain the situation. And because this miscommunication thing was such a thing, they didn't even get to explain the situation. Someone else explained the situation that occurred, which in turn, again, had we gotten rid of like a handful of scenes where the miscommunication was not needed, we would have had a full conversation when everything was wrapped up and said and done. Like, again, I understand miscommunication from a fantastical standpoint. There are too many things happening, too many things occurring for you to like sit down and maybe like explain your feelings. You're processing too many things. Uncle Bob died, and before you could have a chance to even like cry the tear out, the dog is now sick. and now you have to go face down the random demons coming at you, and you'll have a sick dog who's trying to help, and your Uncle Bob is laying there. Like, there's just, and you're standing at the level of your life, like, trying to explain a situation, but you have to fight off demons and save the dog and try not to cry over Uncle Bob. Like, I get it, but this was just too much, and it made no sense, and I wanted it to be over the minute it made sense. And it made sense to be over, like, after the, like, 10th, like, after, like, the third time the situation had played itself out. And the last thing I did not like was the event. There was an event, I think we were all waiting for an event to happen, and while I understood why this event happened, it did not need to happen. I feel like the event happened to further along a character's progression, which is fine, as it happens in books. But in this sense, it didn't need to happen. There were other ways for us to avoid said event, to avoid the problem, to avoid it entirely, and still have nothing happen to the plot. Like, nothing largely change. Like, literally, this event could have been avoided, and everything would be happy and dandy, and nothing would have changed. You would have had to make a minor change, but it wouldn't have destroyed the entire, like, plot of the novel. And to boot, the event wasn't even reflected upon after the fact. Like, you would think that because of the event, like how they reflected back on it at the end of the novel, it happened like years ago. But no, it was literally like maybe like a few weeks, and I'm sitting here like, so this event happened for no reason, and we got to see no character reactions to the event. And for what? To help progress a character that maybe didn't need it? Overall thoughts with the book, I gave it a 4 out of 5 stars. Did I think this book was high stakes and wrapped up and felt like a final book in the novel where things were going to happen and wrap up and fix itself? Yes. Did I think there were a lot of things wrong with the book that made it feel unsatisfying? Yes. Am I aware that I might be searching for a Clockwork Princess ending, or a City of Glass ending, or even a City of Heavenly Fire ending? Yes. However, I think the reason why this feels so unsatisfying to me, and I think to a lot of people, it's not only that we're looking for that final trilogy ending, but a lot of these plots, a lot of these concepts, I think will be going into the Wicked Powers. So while the main problem of this book is contained and feels finished, there's still the sense of openness, especially with one chapter in this book where you know it's going to be happening in the Wicked Powers. And I feel like that's why it feels so unsatisfying, and it feels too good to be true, because it's going to just continue on. And I think that unsatisfying feeling that we're all feeling for both this and Queen of Air and Darkness will end up getting wrapped up in the Wicked Powers. And I just think it's a shame because we lost out on 2 really good endings for the hopeful, amazing conclusion that is going to be the Wicked Powers. And it's fine. I'm fine. Moving on to a slightly more spoilery-filled part of this review is my theories moving on for Wicked Powers. Now, I've mentioned Wicked Powers a lot of times in this review, clearly because this is set between, this publication order comes out between the Dark Artifices and the Wicked Powers. I can only assume that the things that happened in the last hours are gonna be important moving forward for the Wicked Powers, or else she would have changed up the publication order if it was gonna be irrelevant. Now, for you guys to understand this, you will have to have read the Dark Artifices, and at least the first 2 books of The Last Hours. You have to at least know what happens at the end of Chain of Iron for you to understand what the fuck I'm going to be talking about. So, I think one of my theories for the Wicked Powers is that the Paladin thing is going to come back. We see Lilith at the end of Chain of Iron make Cordelia become her Paladin, and in Chain of Thorns we get to see more Paladin work happen, more so discussing what a Paladin is, the concept of a Paladin. And something happens in Chain of Thorns that makes me think that the Paladin aspect of this novel will be continued on in the Wicked Powers, mainly because we have 3 things happening in at the end of Queen of Air and Darkness, and 2 of those things is Thule Sebastian and Thule Jace. Thule Jace is freaking obsessed with actual Clary, or in-person Clary, and he'll do anything to probably get her back, because he lost his own Clary. Thul Sebi has his son Ash that's living here in the real realm now. And to boot, he's also Sebastian. Like, this is what happens if Sebastian, like, won. Like, he won the battle. And the third thing is Lilith. I think Lilith, having seen that she has an easily manipulated Jace and a Sebastian out looking for revenge, she'll ask them to be her paladins. And then, in turn of that, we'll get probably either more demons intrigued in the fact that there are paladins and maybe getting a handful of those, because we still have the people in Idris who are very bigoted, who probably will be easily fooled, as Cordelia was, because of their pride, into thinking they made a pact with, like, Jonathan, like Waylon the Smith, or Jonathan Shadowhunter, and all that stuff, and they will make pacts with them and become unwilling paladins, as Cordelia has. Moving on to the things that we see in the Queen of Air and Darkness, Julian and Emma have drastically changed what Parabatai is supposed to look like. We see the effects of what happens when Parabatai love each other romantically, instead of just platonically as we have seen in the past. They become gigantic fucking glowing gods, for lack of a better word. So I think because of their abilities, we will get to see more demons such as Belial pop back up in the Wicked Powers. And because there's so much demonic activity going on, and as Cassie has mentioned, the Wicked Powers will be probably the more biblical out of the series that we have seen this far. We will probably start seeing angels coming down, because the balance of it all is shooketh, and probably see like actual like angels ask people to be paladins again to fight for their greater war, and then it becomes this whole thing, which again I think translates perfectly into the title, the Wicked Powers, because then we have demonic and angelic forces trying to battle each other and using and manipulating each other, and we'll get to see how that all plays out and how the entire Shadowhunter universe will be changed as we know it. Dun dun dun. But that is my theory for the Wicked Powers. I literally like, I think if there is one keyword to take out of my theories, it's paladins. Like, I have screamed it from the top of my lungs. I'm sure Lisa and Andrew are annoyed and tired of me screaming paladins in their ears since finishing the book, but I really do think that the paladins will make a very interesting comeback, because there would have been no reason to bring that up in the second book and then give us all this information about the paladins, then leave us with that one chapter at the end of Chain of Thorns, and then to boot, leave us hanging with Thul Seb and Thul Jace and Lilith roaming around. So we'll see how this goes. That is my theory. I'm holding on to that theory, and even if I'm wrong, I'm right. But that is it for my book review of Chain of Thorns by Cassandra Clare. If you guys agreed with this book, let me know in my rating, or if you guys agreed with my rating, let me know in the comments down below. If you guys don't agree, let me know down below. If you guys have read this book and want to discuss more thoughts, head over to my vlog, because I don't want to spoil people in the comments. If you guys haven't read this book and have been hesitant, let me know if this has pushed you to read it now or just to push it back even more. But until next time, hope you guys are having a wonderful week, and I hope you guys stay safe, and yeah, if you guys stay safe, and I'll talk to you guys in my next video. Bye!